Hello, my name is Carolina David. This is my classroom management portfolio. As you can see here, I have some thoughts about how I want to run my classroom. We have joint responsibility, inclusive learning environment, autonomy, problem solving and critical thinking skills, caring, loving relationships, positive reinforcement, and active participants. I'm going to begin by talking about my teaching philosophy. So as a teacher, for me, my greatest goal, most important goal, is to create an inclusive learning environment where all of my students can have positive relationships and actively participate in their own learning, and most importantly, to always be motivated to learn and grow. I envision a class led by low, medium control approaches where the control of the student's behavior and education is a joint responsibility between the teacher and the student. My teaching philosophy aligns with two theories. We have Draker's theory of logical consequence, where discipline is not a punishment, but it's the responsibility of the teacher to teach students to impose limits on themselves. And I also agree with Barbara Coloroso's teaching with respect and dignity, where through positive phrasing and through showing students that I trust them as individuals, they will be able to promote their self-worth and their dignity and believe that they can make valuable contributions to the classroom. Now, the role responsibilities are joined in between the teacher and the student, like I mentioned, but the teacher will be in charge of establishing logical consequences, addressing the students' individual needs, and making sure that they establish caring relationships with their students. And then the students will have opportunities to make their own decisions. They will work as a team with the teacher to establish classroom rules and consequences for misbehavior and other aspects. They will actively participate in classroom meetings and in classroom jobs to make their classroom a place conducive for learning. As far as democratic classrooms, for me, a democratic classroom is a place where students act as active participants in classroom decisions and in their own learning. Now, for me, it's important that to help students become honorable citizens who will use their skills to solve problems and to create solutions and lead our society. We must consciously think about or provide our students with opportunities where they can take ownership of their own education and develop life skills that would allow them to act and to face the world and make it a better place. And we can do this through meaningful classroom jobs. Okay, and then we have motivation. And we know that motivation is a pivotal key on students' learning because it encourages student appropriate behavior to help them achieve their goals in the classroom. So for me, I'm going to use both strategies, but my goal is to move from intrinsic motivation to intrinsic. Okay, so as part of intrinsic motivation, I want to encourage students' actions rather than their characters. For example, I'm going to use phrases like, I can tell that you work hard, Mary, or Group A, you are working quietly on all of your math problems, rather than just saying like, good job, or you're so smart, because I want my students to think that they don't need innate abilities to succeed at school, but that through their hard work and through putting effort in the classroom, that they will be able to accomplish the goals that they have set. Now, extrinsic motivation can work in situations where we have students who are talkers or who get easily distracted. We can provide students with this post-its where they can put a mark on the post-it every time that they are being focused for about 10 minutes or that they are not being disruptive with other students. So we can trade those points, with incentive or with extra credit. Okay, classroom rules. Well, classroom rules are also very important because they're going to create an appropriate environment for students' learning. But for me, in the process of creating rules, I'm always going to take into account the students' input. And we're going to discuss with the students, what the rules are and why they're important. And we're going to identify expectations for each rule, and provide examples of each of them to highlight how beneficial these rules are. Because we want students to understand how they're gonna benefit them, right? And as far as choosing the consequences when these rules are followed or broken, we're also going to discuss this with the student. And for me, instead of creating positive and negative consequences, I actually like the idea of doing it gradually. I have the gradual consequences here, as you can see, because this will give students more of like an autonomy on this process of having the opportunity to correct their behavior, and move on with the lesson. Okay, so here for procedures, I chose 3. We have the morning procedure, the morning meetings, and the sharpening pencils. I think the most important aspect of setting procedures or teaching them is to constantly model. You're gonna model this to teach them, students, what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it's gonna be like in real life, right? And we're gonna say high expectations for each of the procedures and teach the students that we believe them in doing these procedures and how they're gonna help them create a loving, a safe, and a caring environment where learning is conductive. So it's very important that we practice all the time, and that we remind them, students, when they need to, these procedures. As we have these procedures and as we create a safe environment for students, we'll be able to create good rapport with them. And this is important, and the way to create good rapport with students, for me personally, is to learn the student's name the first day of class, and constantly have interviews with them so that we can learn about their interests, what makes them happy, or any concerns that they might have, and that we can be able to help them the best that we can. We always be respectful, fair, and consistent with our students, and we always smile, and we're passionate about the things that we are teaching, because if we're passionate and enthusiastic about what we're learning, our students will be as well. Okay, so as far as interventions, I ordered them from mild to severe, and I've chosen 3 that I will discuss with you right now. So the first one is the student is distracted with an object. So there are different ways that we can approach this, right? But for situational assistance, you can provide verbal cues, that reinforce the appropriate behavior. Or, if you want to use a nonverbal because you don't want to disrupt the class necessarily, you can remove the distracting object from the student so that he can go back and be attentive in the classroom. Okay, so the student is disrupting another student during instruction. This is a mild response. And the teacher can use the evil eye or ignore the behavior, or can use proximity to discourage the student from disrupting his classmate. For a student pushes another student in line who is a little more severe now. For the moderate responses, the teacher can delay the discussion if he's in the middle of a lesson, and then talk to him privately. And in this one, they're going to take away, a privilege, which can be the student will, not get the free time that he usually gets for the day. You can take this time to talk about them, what really happened, and what they can do to fix it in the future, to fix these kind of behaviors. Okay, so let's move. This is my classroom map. Okay, so as you can see, I set it up in clusters of 4 tables, okay? And then we have here the whiteboard and the magic board. And I did it this way because it's gonna be easy for me to do direct instruction and group work without having to disrupt the classroom by having them moving chairs. That's very important for me because, I envision like moving them here to the rack to talk about the learning target, right? Prepare them. And then they will be moved to their class. And then as I teach, I usually have my students like do group work or pair work or individual work, and I can switch through those types of works by having them sit on the same place. Now, as I mentioned before, for me it's really important that I create an inclusive learning environment where all of my students feel like they can succeed. For that reason, I created different learning centers. We have the library, the writing, the science and math, we have the computer, we have the dramatic play, and we have the art. And this is because, I understand that I'm going to have students who have different intelligence, and who learn through different modalities, where it is auditory, kinesthetic, or visual. And here my students are going to have the choice to choose where they want to go or learn and play their strengths, right? And also I have a small table here where I can provide individualized instruction to my ELLs or students with special needs, or maybe students who are overachieving already in the classroom and they need to be challenged. So they can all receive this individualized instruction, and I'll be able to address their needs. So here I have my resources part, what I have my teaching philosophy, I have my classroom map description, I have my booklet, I have all of the, the things that we were given in class that will be useful for my career in the future.